So if you're a Christian, or have ever been a Christian, or have ever engaged with a missionary, their claim is that I could prove to you from your own Hebrew Bible that Jesus is the Messiah, and there are actually more than 300 prophecies, all point to Jesus. If what I said does not map onto your experience, you should shut the show off right now, because I'm the scammer. But I'm not, and you're not going to shut the show off right now. So this is an intriguing video that I stumbled across on YouTube. So every day, the missionaries come out with these brilliant videos attacking me. In fact, 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday, there was no video attacking me, and I got very insulted. But like, what, am I doing something wrong? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, they come out routinely, and whoever is behind this thing apparently used AI to demonstrate brilliantly why I'm wrong about Isaiah 7:14. And look at the image. Well, I'll just leave it to you, the viewer.
Recently, there's been a lot of controversy and debate surrounding Isaiah 7:14. A verse that tells of a prophecy, a virgin birth, yet is met with dissenting voices. The anti-missionaries argue that this verse has nothing to do with the virgin birth of Jesus. They insist that the word Alma is incorrectly translated as virgin when it should be young woman. They insist that the verse is not about a divine prophecy, but rather an earthly event involving Isaiah and his wife, who they claim is already pregnant at the time. They argue that the child Emmanuel referred to in Isaiah 7:14 is the same child Isaiah's wife will bear in the subsequent chapter, a child named Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz. But do these claims hold water? Let's find out. The interpretation by anti-missionaries that Alma means young woman instead of virgin is deceitful. The term Alma is derived from a Hebrew root signifying a maiden who has reached puberty, typically between the ages of 14 and 16. This age is crucial as it marks the onset of potential childbearing years. With that being said, Alma always refers to an unmarried and therefore virgin girl. In light of this, to suggest that Alma in Isaiah 7:14 refers to Isaiah's wife implies an extramarital affair with a maiden, which is absurd.
As though some anti-missionary named me just came up, just discovered, just invented the idea that the author of the first gospel, Matthew, altered the Jewish in order to make it appear Christological. Quite specifically, out of 27 books in the New Testament, only one of its authors had the audacity to claim that Isaiah predicted that the Messiah would be conceived supernaturally. No one else makes this claim. Even Luke, who's the author of the third gospel, and insists that Jesus was miraculously conceived to a virgin, doesn't even make this outrageous claim, this fatuous claim. Now, in order for Matthew to advance this idea, he had to alter the Jewish scriptures in order to make it appear Christological. It's really that simple. There is no passage anywhere in Isaiah, anything, verse anything, that the Messiah would be miraculously conceived. But in order for the author of Matthew to engineer this, he had to alter a very famous passage, Isaiah 7, verse 14. However, although Matthew claims in Matthew 1:23 that the passage, "Behold, the Lord will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," it doesn't say that. Like, the key word there, virgin, doesn't exist in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Rather, it says, Hineho Alma Hara, behold, the young woman is pregnant. Hara is in the perfect tense, ready pregnant. Violet is bane, and she will give birth to a child. And she's a young woman, so the word Alma does not convey virginity. Alma conveys two things, youth and gender. That's it, nothing else. Now, it's that you might think that, well, maybe the word virgin is somehow similar to it. It isn't. The word virgin only tells us about someone's sexual history. That's all. It doesn't tell us anything else. You can have a 90-year-old woman who's a virgin. Doesn't matter. They're not the same. Of course, a young woman might be a virgin or might not be. I want this to be a teaching moment. When a missionary makes a claim, I want you to get used to asking the question, show me the evidence. I want you to get you, that should just, what is your, so this, whoever this fellow is, he made the claim that the word Alma always means, what did he say, like a girl who's between 14 and 16 in the beginning of puberty? So that's just, like, how do you know that?
The interpretation by anti-missionaries that Alma means young woman instead of virgin is deceitful. The term Alma is derived from a Hebrew root signifying a maiden who has reached puberty, typically between the ages of 14 and 16. This age is crucial as it marks the onset of potential childbearing years. With that being said, Alma always refers to an unmarried and therefore virgin girl. In light of this, to suggest that Alma in Isaiah 7:14 refers to Isaiah's wife implies an extramarital affair with a maiden, which is absurd.
Like, where do you pull this stuff from? It's like, it's just made up. It's like made up. Just like, what is your evidence for it? Now, what is the evidence against that? It's staggering. Like King David in 1 Samuel 17, verse 56 is called an Elam, which is the masculine version of it. Was David a virgin as well? I mean, this is so stupid. And if it does mean virgin, why doesn't it say the virgin David in 1 Samuel 17:56? I mean, it's in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 19 and 20. I want you to know this. This is very important. So it's a very beautiful proverb. Now, actually, the name of the book is called Mishlei. The name of the book, Proverbs in Hebrew, proper name is Mishlei. And the word Mishlei means a parable. Okay? That's what it really means. Like a mashal in Hebrew means an example. Let me give you an example. So King Solomon writes this parable about an eagle flying through the sky. So after it passes and you look at the sky, there's no sign that a bird had ever flown there, right? Because the bird's gone, right? A snake slithering over a rock, after it passes over the rock, there's no trace, there's no way to tell that a snake had ever been there. Conversely, in contrast, if the snake had slivered over sand, it would leave a trail, right? A ship passing through the water, right? So after the ship passes through, there's a wake, but then the water sort of comes together, and then you look at the water, and you can't tell if the ship had ever moved through there. And then he says, "Kein der gever bi alma," such is the way of a man with an alma. The same word, same exact word. This is the way, and it says, "Thus is the adulterous woman. She commits fornication." Now, she's an adulterous woman, which means she's a married woman. So a married woman is not a virgin. And therefore, when she engages in fornication, after she engages in adultery, what does she have to do? He says, all she has to do is take a bath, take a shower, and then she says, "I've done nothing wrong," meaning there is no trace on the adulterous woman that she committed fornication. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, does the word Alma mean a virgin? Of course not. It's just dumb. I'm sorry to use such scholarly language, but it just isn't true. Iksarti yemei alumov. You have shortened the days of my youth, King David says. He's not talking about, he doesn't say his virginity. So why play the game? And please, 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 when a missionary brings up the Septuagint, say, please don't talk to me about Septuagints. I'm just warning you now. And you're going, what's a Septuagint? Well, 2,250 years ago, 70 or 72 Jews translated just the 5 books of Moses into the Greek language. It is now lost. It was written for the Library of Alexandria, which has been destroyed multiple times over. We don't have it. If you had one, you'd be very wealthy, okay? Later on, multiple Greek translations were created, including by the church, and they would interpolate all these Christologies into these Greek translations. So the Septuagint that you order on Amazon or get for free on Google is not what was done 2,200 years ago. That was only 5 books the most. That wasn't Isaiah, but that's a scam. So you need to know about it. You need to know what's, you know how you get an email from your bank or PayPal and or Amazon saying, warning, there's a scam going on. People are going to ask you for your password, so don't give it to them, okay? So I'm doing that. This is a security alert. Like, if you hear the word Septuagint, run for your life. The word Septuagint is nowhere to be found in the Christian Bible. It doesn't exist. Now, I should say that there are Bible teachers who say this, and they say it because their Bible teacher told them this. So it's not like they invent it. It's like an old scam that just gets repeated over and over again, and it's complete nonsense. Moreover, I want to just teach you how to think, if I may. Please, 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 please. When someone says Septuagint, because this is going to come up, okay, I want you to be asking a question, okay? The original assertion, which is fatuous, of the church is that I could prove to you from your Hebrew Bible that Jesus is the Messiah, okay? Now, if you're a Christian, have ever been a Christian, or ever met a Christian, I'm kidding, the last one, ignore that. I was just being silly. So if you're a Christian, or have ever been a Christian, or have ever engaged with a missionary, their claim is that I could prove to you from your own Hebrew Bible that Jesus is the Messiah, and there are actually more than 300 prophecies all pointing to Jesus. Now, if what I said does not map onto your experience, you should shut the show off right now, because I'm the scammer. But I'm not, and you're not going to shut the show off right now. So it's a shell game. It's 3-card Monty. What happens is you're being sold on something that the Hebrew Bible all points to Jesus. There's absolute proof in the Jewish scriptures, in the Hebrew Bible, that Jesus is the Messiah. And then when you dig a little bit, you go, wait, but it's not there. And then you go, well, it may not be there, but it's in the Septuagint. Wait, that was not the deal. That's not what I signed up for, okay? So be very careful of this. The claim of the church, which is a fantastic claim, which requires at least mediocre evidence. We're not being handed mediocre evidence. We're being handed promiscuous evidence, scandalous evidence, okay? So just be very careful, because you're going to get Septuagint arguments, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble. Okay, now here's where I want you to be very careful. I want to explain to you that the text actually says, behold, the young woman is with a child. The context. If you don't know the context of Isaiah 7:14, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. And when you meet a missionary who quotes Isaiah 7:14, like this genius who made this video, they don't talk about the context. They don't. They won't. They can't, because it destroys everything. The 1-minute version of this. There was a civil war. The northern kingdom of Israel, today the state of Israel is one country, right? But for a period from after King Solomon died until Sancherib, until the Assyrian Empire, Israel was divided into 2 kingdoms, a northern kingdom, which means everything north of Jerusalem, and the southern kingdom, which is Judea, the south, okay? Everything south of where I am right now, okay? Now, times they got along really well, and times they went to war. This is one of the latter times, where the northern kingdom of Israel, which is called Samaria, it's called Ephraim. Ephraim is the lead tribe of the northern kingdom, allies itself with Syria, like the country Bashar al-Assad just lost to some rebel guy. That's Syria, okay? That's Aram. Not us, Syria, but Syria. So though Syria and the northern kingdom of Israel ally together and go to war against Judea in the south because they hate Assyria. And Judea, led by Ahaz, King Ahaz, is seeking an alliance with Assyria. There was the motherlode of bad ideas. Ahaz was a very wicked king. But the key was that here, like I'm here in Jerusalem, right? So I would be surrounded by two armies, the northern kingdom of Israel and the Syrians. Holy smokes, right? So Isaiah, who lived here in Jerusalem, would come to Achaz and say to him, I'm going to give you a sign so that you're going to know that these two kingdoms that are trying to destroy you will not succeed. Now, as it turns out, listen carefully, guys, as it turns out, the sign is not the conception or birth of the child. This is what everybody gets wrong. Why? Because Satan is amazing. I'm not kidding. Like, God created Satan to cast forth blandishments, and then we need to resist him, so we have free will. But he's a really smart guy. And what does he do? He makes sure that when people feel like reading something, they pick up a Harry Potter rather than the book of Isaiah. He's a genius. So people don't read Isaiah 7. Incidentally, I often say to you, you've heard me say it many times, that less than 10% of the book of Isaiah is using simple prose, and there's no poetry. I mean, 90% of Isaiah is poetry. Isaiah 7 is really not using poetry. Isaiah 7 is one of those few chapters that's very easy to read. Okay, so that's really cool. I mean, you basically have Isaiah 7, Isaiah 36, 37, 38, 39. That's it. The whole book of Isaiah, those are the only chapters where there's basically no poetry, or not the kind of poetry you'll find everywhere else, okay? So that's cool. So that makes it really easy. This is an easy one to understand. I mean, you can go to Isaiah 7, verse 1, and just read it, and it will read like you're reading the book of Kings. You know exactly what's going on, okay, guys? Okay, now listen. So listen very carefully. So what happens is Achaz was a very wicked king. He didn't want Isaiah's help, but Isaiah went over to him anyway. Why was Isaiah helping this fellow out? He was an evil king, a wicked king who ruled for 16 years. It was because God had a promise to King David to keep, and his promise was that nothing could ever happen to the Davidic kingdom. So therefore, God was stuck. He had to save Judea and the Davidic king of Judea, who was Achaz, not because he deserved it, he merited it, he was a horrible person. But Hashem had a promise to keep, and God keeps his promises. Now, Isaiah 7:14 is not the sign. What I want you to do, my holy brothers and sisters, is listen very carefully, is go to the next two passages. That's the sign. So Isaiah 7:15 says, butter and honey shall he eat. He is the child, the baby, when he will know to refuse bad and choose good. That means by the time the child matures. What does butter and honey mean? Like, what do you mean butter? So why do people make butter? Like, butter tastes good, right? But you need to understand why it's butter or cream. Like, what is chemo? Why in the ancient world did they make butter and a lot of it? Or cheeses? Why? Because you didn't have refrigeration. And if you have no refrigeration, so you milk a cow, what do you do with the milk? It's going to go bad very quickly, right? No refrigerator. If it's not in the winter, what do you do? Well, if you make butter or you make cheese, it can last a long, long time. And then we made it taste really good. But butter, the original purpose of butter and cheese is these were techniques and methods to preserve food over the long term. Pickling, salt, all these were methods, and they were experts in it. But the key is that butter and honey has to be cultivated. These are not foods that you're eating under siege, okay? So butter and honey will the child eat before he knows to reject evil and choose good. Why? For before the child knows this, it means before the child is matured, knows the difference between good and evil, the land that you abhor shall be forsaken by both of these kings. These kings will be gone, will be finished. You got it? So is the sign the conception of the child? No. Is the sign the birth of the child? No. The sign is the maturity of the child. That means before the child, how old does a child need to be that he knows to just the difference between good and evil? Let's say 3, okay? Let's just say, the baby doesn't really understand these concepts. With our kids, when they go to pick up a knife, they don't know why. It's so funny, you give your kid like this I remember, like, I gave my kids, like, this fancy, expensive Fisher-Price toy. They would much rather have a chainsaw. This beautiful toy you pick up in Toys R Us. But no, they always go for the knife and they go for the electric outlet. I don't know what it is. They don't know, right? So before the kid matures, you got to tell them, don't do that. But before the kid matures, these two enemies, namely Syria and the northern kingdom, will be forsaken. Now, the text actually says, this is very critical, the text actually says, and she will call his name Emmanuel. The Hebrew is V'karat Shemo Emmanuel, and she will call his name Emmanuel. Got that? This is very important. Who is she? The mother. The mother of this baby, who's Isaiah's wife, is going to call him Emmanuel. Now, why is this important? This is very important because does Mary ever call Jesus Emmanuel? Never. Not once. In fact, she's instructed in the Annunciation, that means in Luke chapter 1, all the way, let's say in the 30s, 31, 32, 33, 34, she's told his name is going to be Jesus. It doesn't even happen. So in Matthew, if you look carefully, in Matthew 1:23, you'll see Matthew changes that too, and they will call his name Emmanuel. Where'd you get they from? They could be anyone. It's a third person plural. It could be anyone. Who is it? Someone who lives in Cleveland. It doesn't matter anymore, okay? You got that? Okay. So it's really important for you to understand that the sign is not the conception or birth of the child, but the sign really is the maturity of the child. The child will not yet mature, and these two kings that you abhor, which two kings? Syria and the northern kingdom of Israel will be gone. They'll be finished. In fact, that's what happens through assassinations. Pekach ben Remaliah, who was the king of the northern kingdom of Israel, he's assassinated, and Ritzin, he's gone to, he's the king of Syria. Okay, good. All right? Now, I'm telling you that the same boy who's born in chapter 8 is given a different name by Isaiah as instructed by God. Now you go, well, how do you know that, Singer? Well, because it says it openly, and it's this. Whatever you're doing, put your cell phone on mute. Whatever you're doing, sit down, because you will lose your mind. There's no question Isaiah had in mind Christianity when he writes these words. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 3, Isaiah says, Ve'ekrav el hanaviyah. I'm not kidding. The NIV the New International Version tries to make it a little Victorian. So the NIV translates it, and I made love to the prophetess. But the word Ve'ekrav literally means, and I entered the prophetess, which means that for whatever reason, and you'll know why, you now know why, Isaiah graphically conveys that he had sexual intercourse with his wife, who was also a prophet. That word Ve'ekrav, now the root, karov, is very common. It's all over Tanakh. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many, but that exact structure, Ve'ekrav, only appears in Tanakh twice. And both times is because it's actually wants to show sexual intercourse here, and it's in the Torah once as well. So Isaiah is saying, don't think this is a virgin birth. This is so brilliant. Normally, when the Torah wants to describe intimacy, sexual intimacy, to know. Now, you might think that's a euphemism. It really isn't, but I'm not going into that now. He knew her is a euphemism for being intimate, right? Now, the truth is, it's really interesting. It goes back to the Garden of Eden, but I don't want to talk about that. But the key is Isaiah does what Tanakh never does, except for one occasion, because it's very critical there that there was sexual intercourse going back to the Bible. He Stavka says that don't think this is a virgin birth. He says, Ve'ekrav al Neviah, I had intercourse with the prophetess. Look at Isaiah 8, verse 3, and she conceived. She gave birth to a son, and God told me, call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. Odd name, but it really means quicken the loot, hasten the booty. It's a redundant name. Why? Because there are two kings that are going to be destroyed. Now, in case you think I'm making this up, in case you think I'm like spinning this, look at what it says in verse 4, Isaiah 8:4. Like, if you know what I'm sharing with you now, your brains will explode. I'm kidding, but you just lose your mind. Look at verse 4. Remember we talked about the maturity of the child is an indication of when the two kings will be destroyed, the northern kingdom of Israel and Syria. Look at verse 4. So you know, I ain't making this up. It's in the text. Rabbi Isaiah, for before the boy knows to say, my father, daddy, mommy, the wealth of Damascus. Where's Damascus? Syria. And the plunder of Samaria, that's the northern kingdom, will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Bingo. So in both cases, Isaiah 7:15-16 and Isaiah 8:3-4, it's the maturity of the child that is the indicator of when Judah will be saved. Bingo. However, there's one nafkamina, meaning there's one difference between them, and that is the mother is supposed to call the child Emmanuel, and the father is supposed to call the child quicken the lute, hasten the booty. What's the difference between these two names? So both of them are speaking about the victory of Achaz over the alliance. It's called the Afro-Syria War. One is saying that God is with you. Hashem will be with you. Imanu Kael. And you can look at Isaiah 8, verse 10. You see it right there. And that's why we have Isaiah 7:14. Remember, I said to you a moment ago that the sign is not the 14. You can ask me the question, then why do I need Isaiah 7:14 for? Behold, the young woman is with a child, bear a son. Why do we need that for? Look at Isaiah 8, verse 18. And he says openly that the Lord has given me, Isaiah saying this, God has given me children for what purpose? For signs and portents for the children of Israel. Openly says it. One other caveat, this, if you absorb even 10% of what I'm saying, you'll go flying. Isaiah marries a prophetess. I mean, she was a great woman, imagine. And they have children, and their children are given names that are signs that Judah will be saved. There's another child that comes to the water pool in Isaiah 7:3, and his name is the remnant will remain. Shar Yoshev. You see? Think of Hosea. When did Hosea live? At the same time. Hosea and Isaiah were contemporaries, but whereas Isaiah lived where I am, in Jerusalem, Hosea was all the way up in the north. And Hosea was speaking to the nation that would be carried off. So he marries a prostitute, not a prophetess, the exact opposite. And the names of his children, Lo Rachamu and Lo Ami, these are names that are portents of doom to the northern kingdom of Israel. So really, is it an anti-missionary? Now, you should know they all engage in this. All these missionaries engage in this. They just routinely attack me. Why? Because they feel if they can attack Rabbi Tovia Singer, that means Jesus is the Messiah. It's just simple. It's an ad hominem attack. What is it? Why is an ad hominem attack the chief of all fallacies? Because they have nothing to do with the other. If I'm the worst person in the world, that doesn't mean that Christianity is true. You understand? So it's like I'm playing this shell game where I just woke up. It's all nonsense, okay? So as it turns out, it is Matthew that misappropriated the Hebrew Bible in order to make it appear Christological. And one more thing, if this is a prophecy about Mary and Jesus, what are the two kingdoms that will be destroyed? When did Jesus mature? When did he eat butter and honey? This is all such nonsense. How does this possibly, please ask your priest or pastor, how could this possibly apply? I'll just do this because we're here, so I'll take 1 minute. Some Christians claim this is a dual prophecy. I'm not kidding. They say it was fulfilled once at the time of Isaiah, it's fulfilled the second time at the time of Jesus. You're going to get everything thrown at you. Don't buy it. It's a scam, okay? Don't click on the link. Don't give away your password. You have to ask the question, if there's a dual prophecy here, then who is the first? If the word Alma means virgin, then that means there's two virgins. There's not only a virgin time of Jesus, meaning Mary, but there had to be a virgin time of Isaiah. Who was that virgin? Do you see how the whole thing collapses? It collapses, the book of Matthew collapses, and with it the entire church collapses. This was interesting. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל